studied diploma in law in LASU for a year before I left Nigeria. So I really need to get this career. And Home Office called me to offer me my permanent residency.
Wow.
I did not pay a penny out of my pocket for childcare for them. It's just like it's Aleko. I don't know how people live in London. I don't know how they do it. The way they treat us, the color of our skin, they will always treat us different. That was what I observed from the way I was treated while I was there.
So you may be one of the people who are interested in knowing what studying nursing in the United Kingdom looks like. Today I've got someone with me on the channel who is a freshly graduated nurse. I want to say student nurse, but no, she's no longer a student nurse. She's now a registered nurse in the United Kingdom. And here on the channel today, she's going to be sharing with us her experiences about studying nursing in the United Kingdom, especially as an international student. So stay tuned and make sure that you watch it to the very end to get all the juice. If you are new to this channel, hi, my name is Victoria. Thank you so much for joining me on today's video. Please make sure to like this video, leave me a comment below, share this video with your friends, and subscribe if you like my content. Now I have the privilege of inviting Wemimo of That Mom of 5. She's actually a YouTube content creator also. I have the privilege of inviting her onto the channel. Okay, right. So please, can you introduce yourself to us, please?
My name is Wemimo Ogundewe, Mrs. and I'm known as Wemi for short among my colleagues and workmates. And I'm known as That Mom of 5 on YouTube, on the street of YouTube. And I'm also known as TMO5 Candle Co because I sell scented candles and home fragrances. And I'm a mama of 5.
Those are the business women on YouTube.
We are trying
about that actually.
We are trying.
We'll talk about that. So from your name, we can see that you are a Nigerian, you are Yoruba.
Yes.
So how did you become if you don't mind telling us, how you became a resident in the United Kingdom?
Well, it was a very long journey and the story is quite long, and apparently this is the first time I'm ever going to be sharing the story. I am happy to share it here if it's going to benefit anybody here. So I left Nigeria at the age of 21 with my oldest child there, who was just I think she was just over a year old, and by then I was already pregnant with my second child as well. So hubby was in Holland for about a year and a half. So immediately we got married, he left while I was pregnant with my first child. So it was just me and family and a young lady at that time. I would say I was quite young when I fell pregnant with my daughter. So eventually we traveled together in I think 2006 if I'm not mistaken. So initially was on a visiting visa, and the plan was that we were going to go to Dublin for me to have my baby there because we heard pregnant women were being given you can easily settle down that way. Unfortunately, by the time we arrived in the UK, we found out that scheme was already closed. I don't know how accurate it was then, but we couldn't proceed with our journey, so we had to stay with a family friend. Obviously you have only a 6-month visa, you're supposed to go back, and obviously I was pregnant with my child then and I was too heavy to go back. So at some point I met a lady. She was an English woman and it was just my name. Obviously she met me one day. I was working with my daughter, my oldest daughter, and I was about maybe 8.5 months pregnant. And then I was already stressed because I couldn't eat proper Nigerian food. I couldn't eat proper Nigerian bread. The first time I had bread, it was salty. I burst into tears. All of that alone, it was hard for me. I was just like, I said to my husband, I have to go back to Nigeria, that I'm not staying. So I mean, it was one of those days when I was just taking a walk and I met this lady and she was like, oh, what's your name? What's your daughter's name? So I gave her my name, and that was how I had acquaintance. I started talking with this lady. And at some point, something does tell me, speak to her. Obviously, because I know you're going to have a baby in this country. You don't have your own house. You don't have anything. We're basically like visitors. And by that time, we've already we've extended our stay by then. So I started talking to her, and then she said, Wemi, it's going to be very, very hard, but I'm going to introduce you to a couple of people that will make sure that nothing happens to you until you have your baby. So all of that, she introduced me to a couple of people, and she said that the best thing for you would be to go to Scotland. And I was like, I don't know anybody in Scotland. And obviously, by the time we were speaking to solicitors and stuff, like, oh, it's going to be a hard journey for you from visiting to, having a baby. Obviously, you can't go back now because no airline is going to allow you on their flight. So at that time, we're like, hey, this is immigration issue. Hey, voila, we're scared, especially my husband, we're really, really scared. So at some point, we decided to kind of like move to Leicester. So we're in London then. So we moved to Leicestershire from London, and from there, my husband found a couple of jobs with his friends, but then that income was not making a lot. So eventually, I've had my second child by then, and me too, we're struggling to kind of like make ends meet while we are looking for ways of settling down in the UK as well. So one afternoon, I went to Leicester City Centre to go shop for food, and I met somebody speaking Yoruba on the street. Mo wale o, Shegbo Yoruba. For the fact that I heard her speak Yoruba,
honestly, like
I felt like holding her. I felt like grabbing her. I said, yes, I speak Yoruba.
You should actually see me the very first time when I saw a Yoruba person. She was Igbo in my place of work where I was working when I first came in. Like, I hugged the person. I said, I am home. Hello. The person was looking at me like, are you okay? What's wrong with you? Like, I really hugged the person. Like, I was so happy. So I can relate.
She was like, I'm looking for her. She was speaking Yoruba, and with Mila, I looked at her. She looked elderly, and I was like, Mila, I heard that. I was like, Mogbo Yoruba. So I kind of like, went to her. She held me, and I was like, actually, one of my husband's friend has a flat whom is looking to rent out. That if you don't mind, she was like, Matele, I'll follow you. She followed me to my house, and I said, please, auntie, wait downstairs here. Let me go upstairs and tell the man in the house that I am bringing a stranger in. Immediately I go upstairs, my husband wouldn't have any of it. You don't know her. You don't know if she's immigration. You don't know if she's police. You don't know if she's social worker. You don't know this. You bring Wala to me. You just to my entire. I'm like, no, she doesn't look that way. This, that. So eventually I buzzed her up. She came upstairs, and that was how we formed a lifetime relationship. So even by that time when I was talking to her, I didn't even know that I was already pregnant with my third child.
Wow.
Again. And my second daughter was just 9 months old. I did not realize. So immediately she got upstairs and she started talking. She was like, oh, mommy. She calls me a child. Oh, mommy, you look pregnant. I'm like, nah, Dad, this baby is serious. She's only 9 months old. Like, no, I'm not. She was like, go take a pregnancy. So I took a pregnancy test, and it ended up that I was pregnant again, just a few weeks. So eventually she got the flower, and we became close pals. She would come, she would bring food shop, she would do everything. We kind of like formed a really close relationship. I mean, she was like a sister that I never had, like an older sister that I never had. So we started talking, and she shared lots of stories about herself, her journey abroad, and how she is and where she is right now. So I thought she's someone I could actually open up to, because I don't really have anybody I speak with like that. So I was forced to say to her that, this is our story. We came in this way. I explained that we came in with this and that, and the way we is right now is terrifying because we don't know our faith. So, and then that's when they used to advise you that, when you come with your Nigerian passport, you need to send it back home to Nigeria and stuff like that. But with mine, I really can't even say where mine was. My hobby still has its own. So she was like, no, I won't lie to you.
Sorry, did you say you need to send back your passport home?
Yeah.
Why?
So you can easily kind of like put in your application again back home in Nigeria for them to kind of like, maybe give you an extension, maybe apply for a multiple visa or something like that. That was in 2007, 2008. I think that kind of process was still ongoing there. So once it comes like that, you just need to use your travel certificate or something to go back to Nigeria, and they come in with a new visa and stuff like that. So that was the plan that we're going to do. But eventually, while we're waiting, you don't have people back home to do all that running for you. We couldn't do it. So, which means that we were stuck. We can't go forward. We can't go backward. So we're practically hiding. When we couldn't go like do normal things like somebody who is settled in the UK. So we spoke to her. She was like, I won't lie to you that she's got a brother in Glasgow who has been claiming asylum every 6 months. He has a residency permit for Dublin, but he will come to Scotland. There's a way he goes about it. So these are kind of like deep secret I don't want to be sharing here. There's a way it goes about it, and then when you claim asylum, if you go back to immigration and say, I want to go back home to Nigeria, they used to give them loads of money. Like I think it was about $3,000 or $4,000 per family member.
Wow.
The hope is that you won't come back to the UK again, that you can settle down. She's told me that this our brother has done like multiple times. He keeps going and saying that it was the war that chased him from Africa, that chased him back again, you know. So she was like, our best bet would be to go to Scotland. With Scotland, you can easily settle down. Now that you have 2 kids and then you have another one coming on the way, it's just going to be an easy process for you. So a month after, she was the one who bought me my course. In fact, we came to Scotland together. She was on the coach with me, with my 2 daughters, and my obviously, men will always push the women forward first. So that was how I stepped in Scotland with her, took me to her brother's house, and then the journey started. So eventually she was like, you know what, she kind of like gave me a story of immigration, like asylum stories and stuff like that. Basically, I got my settlement through asylum. And that journey took me 4 years. 4 years of, obviously, I was having babies. I had like 4 babies in between while I was claiming my asylum claim. It took me 4 years. And within that 4 years, I was just not sitting, sleeping and waking up like most people will do. I went back to school as an adult returner. Like I went back to college. They were like, you know, you have opportunity to go to college. You have opportunity to learn any trade, anything you want to do. You get the support. For free. The only thing is that you're not allowed to work to get any paid employment. And again, you have to make sure you adhere by all the immigration rules. Like you have to come to the home office once every 2 weeks or once every 4 months. For me, it was every week they asked me to be coming. But me, I was like, what is my JLO doing that I will not go? I will go now. Shebi, they just want to know that I'm here. Why not? So, you know, I was giving my own flat. I was giving I think it was a 3-bedroom flat with my kids.
Wait, then, so your husband did not follow you, did he?
No, it did not. It was just me.
Did they not ask about your husband?
I did, but we just had to kind of like, you know, give a background story of, you know, it was just me and nobody else. So so that was how I came in. I was giving my own flat, a 3-bedroom flat in a very nice area. I was getting monthly support of monthly pay, like they'll pay me a certain amount every week. You know, I was not paying rent. I was not paying any bill at all. The only bill I probably was paying was maybe my mobile phone bill. And then I was buying food, so everything else was provided for me. So all of that was provided for me for 4 good years. And that 4 years, I was just, you know, keeping my head down. I was like, you know, I was still pregnant. So by then I was about 6-7 months pregnant with my son by then. And I was like, no, once I have this son, and I found out I was having a boy. So I made up my mind that once I have this child, I'm going back to school, because I studied diploma in law in LASU for a year before I left Nigeria. So I was like, no, I really want to make that happen. I want to become a solicitor. I really need to get this career. But obviously, 3 babies, law is hard. So yeah, along that, I met lots of Scottish friends. I met a very wonderful, lovely Scottish man. He was into engineering, and he would come look after me, and he wants to marry wife. So so he introduced me to a lot of other African people, like Kenyans. He has a very large African friend community. He introduced me to all of them, and then, you know, I was like, you know, socializing and making friends. So when I had my son, my son was only 6 weeks old when I enrolled for my course at college. Then as an adult returner, like, you know, obviously they believe I can't speak English. They believe I can't write English. And me, I was just looking at them like, okay. So I embarked on that journey, and to the glory of God, I did that adult returner course. I went on to do an NC course in computing. I went on to do an HNC in computing. Went on to do HND in computing. And eventually, I finished college. That was all within the 4 years I was waiting. And eventually, I applied to University of West of Scotland for information technology for my first degree. So in fact, I thought I was not going to be able to go to uni, because I've not still had my permanent residency yet. I don't know what's going to happen in terms of fees and stuff like that. And I think by the time I finished my 4th year at college, my HND information technology, I was pregnant with my 4th child, which is my 2nd son. And then my son was born on the 7th of February 2010, and Home Office called me to offer me my permanent residency on the 15th of February 2010.
Wow.
In fact, before then, there have been several attempts of immigration trying to deport people, but I've never had that issue, because every time they ask me to come, I'm always keeping on my appointment. If they ask me to go do this, I'm always doing that. I've never given them any reasons for them to believe that they should not allow me to settle in the UK, because even doing that, you have to they want to be sure that you are really genuine. If they ask me to come in for an appointment, I'll tell them, oh, this is my college days, but can I quickly do my college in the morning? Maybe first course in the morning, then by 11 o'clock, I'll rush down, and then, I'll always let my lecturers know I've got an appointment at home office, I need to go, or I'll let them office know I'm running late, or I'm just leaving my class. And I know I do all of that, and they've never. I know some people who came into Asylum whereby they went into their house, they broke down their door, and they deposited them. For me, I never had any issue at all with them all through that 4 years. So eventually, I got my permanent residency, indefinite leave to remain, which they no longer give now to people by asylum and stuff like that. On the 15th of February 2010, I was super happy, and that was when I was already applying to go to uni to study information technology. So obviously, I went ahead, got my references from college, and I started my first degree in September of 2010. So I went directly into third year information technology. So along the line, I found out that I'm not going to be the one to pay my fees. So there's something called SAAS, SAAS, Student Award Agency Services. So they're like education board that pays for home students. But in Scotland, if you are already settled in the UK, the government will pay for your fees, as long as you've been resident in that country for 3 years. So you're already settled. And if you are living either in Scotland or in England, you need to have been living in that area for 3 years for the government to pay your fees. But your permanent residency, you must have that. So if not that, okay, maybe exactly. So let's say, for instance, I want to go to England now, and I've got all of my kids, and we've not been living there for 3 years. I will have to pay their fees as an international student because I've not been a resident there for 3 years. Yeah. So along the line, I found out that they will be the one to pay my fees. I was happy. I was given the chance to apply for student loan, discretionary funding, all of those applications for uni, that there was just enough financial support for it. I was not struggling at all. Wow. By this time, I had 4 kids, all under the age of 7.
Wow.
I did not pay a penny out of my pocket for childcare for them.
So the government was taking care of them?
So it was uni who was paying for childcare all through.
Wait. I am not getting it. your university that you just...
Yes. Yeah, because you have children.
Applied to.
So you have children. They will ask you, have you got dependents? Have you got this? Have you got that? Are you working? So obviously, I don't have any income. I've only just gained my residence permit, so I don't have any income, and I was on benefits. So these are all the things they will put into consideration. So by the time I enrolled, I already got my student loan, and I already got all of my living allowances by SAAS. Meanwhile, by student loan, I will have to pay it back. So uni has something they call discretionary funding. That's separate apart from childcare funds. So they were paying all of my childcare fund for my 4 kids. However, the fee for about 4 kids there was about almost $5,000 for a year, but they could only cover 4,300, I think. And I was entitled to discretionary funding of about 1,000 plus every month just for upkeep and living because I was not working. So they now advised that if you really want to continue with your study, what would you like to do? So I was like, no, I don't mind you taking part of my discretionary funding for my living allowance and add it to that childcare fund so that I won't have any struggle. So at the end of the day, it was still no money from my pocket. It was my union who was paying for my childcare.
Wow.
They paid for all of them.
Wow.
All through my first degree. So I went on, did my third year, did my honors degree. So I graduated year 2013 with my first degree, information technology. And that was me. I thought, no more studying. Like, let's go for the job. Like, let's start earning the money. So this time when I was studying, I was working with Sainsbury's. I already found a job with Sainsbury's supermarkets. So I was working there part-time. So I would go to uni during the week and I'll work Sainsbury's over the weekend, 16 hours a week, Saturday and Sunday. So the aim was to apply as an internal staff, so either into HR, because I believe I'm a manager of people and I really love HR side of information technology. So then while I was still at college, I said to my manager then that, come, I'm finishing in so time. I want to apply for this post. So that's fine. They call it graduate role. If you're already working for a particular company, you can apply for any of their graduate roles. So I said, I want to apply for this. So we're like, that's fine, no problem. And obviously, I love my job. The uniform alone, like Sainsbury's uniform alone, I'm always, happy when I wear the uniform, So eventually I graduated and I then applied for the role, only for them to say to me that graduate roles are only available in England, which means that I can't, there's none in Scotland. And I was like, so are you saying to me I'm going to have to move to England? Well, like, yes. I'm like, nah, I'm not. Scotland is home. If I can't get any in Scotland, no way for me. So that was the first hope of mine that was dashed. So eventually I couldn't apply for that role because my kids were too young and the cost of living in England was just too high. And because I've visited London several times, it's just like it's Aleko. I don't know how people live. I'm serious. I don't know how people live in London. I don't know how they do it.
I want that too.
The last time I went,
Londoners, don't come for me.
Don't come for me too. Don't come for me too. I'm just saying what I observed. The last time I went, I almost passed out. So that was that with me. Couldn't go for that IT role, and every other I applied to HP. I applied to all these information technology companies. They were like, by the way, I graduated with a second class lower anyway. No job, no experience, blah 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 blah. So I tried a few companies, and I'm like, no.
Oh, they do that no experience nonsense. Yeah.
Yes, they do. So I was just like, if you don't give me this job, how will I get experience?
How will you get the experience now?
So I just stopped applying and I just squarely faced my job at Sainsbury's. Then I was just a customer service assistant, and then I went from working 16 hours to 30 hours a week. So by then my hubby has already joined me. And I think a few months after I got my residence permit, I filed for him as well to say, no, my husband is here. Obviously, all of my kids, I was putting his name is the father. At some point, we have to do DNA test.
So that made it easy for...
Exactly. At some point, they had to ask me to go do DNA test. So eventually, was granted his residence permit as well. So he moved over to England. So hence, while I was going to uni, at times, if I'm struggling to go pick them up from school, he will be the one to go do that for me. So yeah, and I continued working in Sainsbury's for another 7 years. And by then I was already tired of, working with Sainsbury's, all this customer is always right. It gets me mad. It gets me mad. And I'm sure I shared the story of at some point of some horrible experiences I had working with Sainsbury's on my channel. If it is not colleague wala, it will be customer wala. And me, I think I'm a bit chilled now. Then I was fierce. If you say nonsense, I'm ready for you. That's kind of person I am. I will attack you straight away. I won't blow, but this is my mouth. I'll use it to finish you. So at some point I was just like, no, it got to say whereby I was not comfortable going to work anymore. Every time I plan on going to work, I feel as if I'm walking on eggshells, like as if I'm watching myself among my colleagues. There was just one particular colleague I was having issue with, and it was just not me alone. It was every other member of staff that was having issue with this particular person. But the way they treat us, the color of our skin would always, they would always treat us different. That was what I observed from the way I was treated while I was there. So come December 2016, Boxing Day, I just woke up one day and I'm like, no, I'm tired of all this crap with all this customer strike and colleague getting on my nerves. And I drove to my work and I told, and there was this manager then, I hate is a very strong word. I don't like to use that word, but that was how I felt towards that manager. And then I came in that day. How can you be a manager and you are managing people? Somebody will say good morning to you, you will not respond. And you'll be told saying you are not a morning person. I was like, excuse me, you are a manager. I don't understand. You're like, it's because I'm not a morning person. And I'm like, okay, you can always not be a morning person, but obviously where you're coming from. Your attitude is different from theirs. So things like that gets on my nerves. Like, how can I say good morning to you and you are just ignoring me? And you'll be looking at me and you just ignoring me like what? So all of that all together, Boxing Day that morning, I was going to start work. Obviously, it's a time and a half. 2 hours into that job, and I'm like, you know what? My manager's name. I called him. I'm done. I'm finished. I'm not coming back. He was like, Wemi, you can't do that. I'm like, I'm doing that. I'm walking out. That was, on Boxing Days, supermarket opens maybe 9 or 10 o'clock. So I started.
You did not even give them notice. You just give them 2 hours notice.
No, you can imagine a day after Christmas, you get some kind of energy. So I was like, no, Mr. Lagbaja, in fact, you don't call them Mr. I just call him his name. I'm done. I'm not coming back. Oh, Wemi, you can't do that. Sorry, I'm house. That was me, and I never looked back. I worked in Sainsbury's for 7 years, and I was just off it. So by then, before I eventually left, I've already started talking to people that I know. There was this very elderly woman who would come every Tuesday. She would come shop, and then I'll pack shopping for her. So the first time she came, I packed her shopping for her. And then I noticed that she'll come every Tuesday about lunchtime. And lunchtime, because that branch is a very busy one, there's a petrol station in it. So it's very, very busy. If there's a queue, she would wait for me, like for her to come to me so I could pack her shopping. I was like, why? Like, at some point I started talking to her. She was like, oh, she lives in a residential place. She does this. I just love the fact that, I'm able to speak to her. And every time she comes, she always wants me to pack her shopping. That was how I started thinking about going into a care job. So she was actually the one who opened the door for me. I enjoyed talking to her. In fact, every Tuesday I'll be looking at the time, where is she? And when I look at the camera, I will see that she's just by the side where they take fish. She's doing her selection. So I'm like, oh yeah, there she is. I'll see her for me. So she was practically the one who kept me on for the last 2 hours, for the last 2 years that I spent at Sainsbury's. I would have left Sainsbury's before them, but yeah. So when I met her, she was actually the one who who awakened that desire to become maybe like a carer, not even nursing. It was the one that opened that part for me. So that was how I stopped working at Sainsbury's, and then I started a job in a care home. So that was how my care experience work started.
Wow. So please, can I quickly confirm, from the time you filed for asylum in the UK till the time when you got your permanent residence, how many years was in between?
4 years exactly. 4 years.
4 years.
Yeah. There are people that I met that I got settled, even though they were there before me. I met people who have been there 6-7 years who are still waiting.
Do you think there was a particular reason why yours was faster?
I think when it comes to the case of asylum, your case is being dealt with by merit. At some point, one was telling me that I am not Nigerian. I was like, okay, bring interpreter now. Even then, I was claiming that I don't understand. Obviously, Scottish English is very, very hard. When I first came into Scotland, it was hard. So every time when I was getting interviewed, I would request for an interpreter. And then I was speaking my Yoruba, so obviously the interpreter confirmed that yes, she's Yoruba. Obviously the way she speaks, and then they will ask some tricky questions. Where is Abeokuta? Before you get to Abeokuta, which city or which town will you reach? Before all of that question.
I didn't travel when I was in Nigeria. How am I supposed to know?
But obviously because I did mention that at some point I lived in Ibadan for like a year, because my husband is from Ogbomoso and his families are in Ibadan. So I guess that was how they were able to draft the question that where would, and I can't even remember. I knew there was a city you brand before you get to Guru Maharaji and then into Ibadan. So all of those questions. So eventually we were able to confirm that I was Nigerian. So some people, I think some from people that I've heard of from, either because they couldn't confirm their country of their original country. Some might claim they are Ghanaian, even though they are Yoruba, they are Nigerian. Some might claim they are South African, even though they are from Benin Republic. So there are so many instances like that. Or some might just say, oh, because it's taking forever now, they are not going to attend any home office appointment anymore. And all of these things are things that are striking against them believing you are really who you are, and if we really want you to stay in our country. So each case is being dealt with by its own merits. And I think in my own case, I guess it was probably because I've got kids. I know at that time, two of them were already of school age. They've started school. They're already integrating into the system.
Right.
So, like my oldest, she was like a year and a half when I came into the UK. And 4 years down the lane, she was already going into primary 2 because she is a February baby. She actually started school the year she clocked 4. So that's she going into primary 2. So she's already integrating, and obviously I had a solicitor whom legal aid was covering to cover all of my cases for me. She was always advising like, women, just keep doing what you're doing. If you have an appointment, make sure you go. If there's anything you're supposed to do, please do it. If you're concerned about anything, don't forget to email me and stuff like that. So I guess it was because I've got kids and they were already integrated into the system. And for me as well, I've not sat down. I've gone on to youth, I've gone on to college, HND, and all of these things.
Constantly
exactly. That I'm already getting into the system as well. That she's not going to be a lazy one. She's not going to be the one who's just going to sit down and do nothing. So those are kind of like things my solicitor was arguing to kind of like ensure that I'm being kept in the country. And I believed it worked for me, because at some point, even me, I was like, should I go back and study this law? Because the thing
so are they still doing that asylum thing now?
Yes. I do translation as well. I interpret from Yoruba to English and English to Yoruba. In fact,
I think I watched some of your videos where you say you went.
So I'm still doing it. In fact, I'm still talking. I still had an interpreting yesterday It was somebody who just newly came to claim asylum as a Nigerian.
Hmm.
People are still coming. That's why they say Scotland is the best place. If you stay in England, they will suffer you. Scotland, Glasgow make people, so it's always good. If you know you want to settle quickly, Scotland is the best place for you to be. It might not be easy, it might be longer, it might be shorter, but if you're on the right path, Scotland is the best place for you.
Right.
It's the best place, yeah.
Thank you so much for this explicit explanation. I mean, thank you so much for sharing your story with us.
Don't worry, doctor. I'm glad to share
This
it.
is
I mean,
so
it's the first time I'm sharing it
for
anyway,
me. Thank you so much, guys. This is part 1. Watch out for part 2.